Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.
Howdy, y'all. You're going to love today's podcast for Core Stories Innovators. You get to meet innovative Marine Dave Andersen, who is an extraordinary writer and public affairs officer. That's what he did before he retired from the Marine Corps, among a million other things. But also, he is a land conservator. He has come up with a great way of approaching problems on people's rural and semi-rural pieces of land here in Virginia, the greatest state. Anyway, relax and enjoy. Check them out, and I will catch you on the backside.
Can you hear the chickens?
I sure can, and they're happy.
Yeah, they're very happy chickens. Okay, so I'm sitting outside here. Is that okay?
It's fine.
Who knows what we're gonna hear? Anyways, how's that?
So, Dave, it has been too long since I've laid eyes on you live. So I'm so happy to see you.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. So the last time that we worked together, I was like meeting my idol moment when I went down to New York. You were public affairs officer for the Marine Corps, and you had this fancy Midtown Manhattan office. But you had written the story that had launched Core Stories. It gave me license to write what I had dreamt of writing, which is feature profiles about Marines from a positive slant. And it was, of course, a story about finding the remains of Sergeant Major Michael Curtin in November of 2001 at the World Trade Center. But it remains a groundbreaking story in military journalism, and it certainly, as I say, inspired my life's work. So I'm really honored to be with you again, but also thrilled that I've sort of watched from afar. You've retired and started a business. So talk to me about that journey to where we are now.
Going back to that story and I'm humbled, and it's just, well, I'm just humbled that you say that and that it launched your career, if you will. And I mean, you've been to Oxford University. Come on. That's fantastic. And to even think I had something to do with that is amazing. And I appreciate you saying that. But the story, it's popped up throughout my life many different times. I was going to say odd, but many different times that I didn't expect. And I mean, one time I was at the NYPD birthday celebration they used to do every year at One Police Plaza, and the general got up there, and I honestly forget who it was, but he said, I can't say the words any better than this, and he read my story. And I was like, I was blown away. And anyway, but yeah, so I retired in 2007. I went to, I ran that hockey camp, a leadership hockey camp for like probably 7 years, I think. But I went back to work for a Defense Contract Management Agency, and then I worked for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency under Department of Treasury, and just recently retired from federal service. But all along, I always have something going, and I'm always doing something. I can't sit still. I can't be idle. My mind is always going. I'm always writing down ideas, and it goes back to my father. And my father was a 3-war veteran, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And I was one of 4 boys, and I was the youngest, and I was 9 years later. So it was almost like I was an only child. And my dad and I used to sit there, and he would write on napkins at restaurants, at the kitchen table. Oh, we're going to do this. And he had a Bostonian accent. He says, David, we're going to do this. We're going to park the car, and we're going to make money. And he would just come up with these ideas, and he just never did any of them. He just talked of things he was going to invent and businesses he was going to get rich at. And I've been the opposite. I've written them on napkins and then just started them. I mean, I guess the first big one was the hockey camp, the boot camp hockey. And it started literally out of my wallet. And I had no business plan. I said, let's do this. I put an ad in USA Hockey magazine and away it went. And it was definitely a learning experience. It was difficult. It was scary signing a contract in October for the following summer. You're on the line for $100,000 of ice rental. But the camp went well. And from there, I living in New York City, I'll say, I actually, at that time I was still I bought a snowplow. And I said, oh, this will be fun. I wanted to play with the snowplow. So I bought the snowplow. I plowed my driveway one time. I was like, oh, okay, that's that. All done. And then my neighbor's like, hey, will you do my plow? Will you plow my driveway? Give me like $100. I was like,
there's money here. Yeah.
So I ended up getting a contract for New York City sanitation. And I mean, we had like 65 trucks and it was a nightmare. I mean, you made good money, but oh man, working with sanitation, wow, working with New York City was just a challenge. So I was always doing these things, and I did them off duty. So I was playing with trucks, rebuilding my truck, learning stuff off YouTube. I mean, I rebuilt my entire Ford F-350 7.3 diesel from YouTube, literally. And my nephew, who also remembers Grandpa doing on the plans on napkins, he's like, I love that you just do anything and you just try it. And here, say hi, hello. We have all kinds of animals just coming in. That's Seamus, named after a bartender at Smith Olenski's on 49th and 3rd. Yeah, then we moved down to Lovettsville, Virginia, which is...
Okay, stop there, because I have to interrupt that part, because I had been kind of following you, total fangirl here, and I think of you as like a native New Yorker. I remembered following that you bought the fancy truck. I think you had a couple big heavy service pickup trucks, and then all your tinkering like a gearhead kind of guy, and it surprised me. But then you moved to my state, Virginia, and I'm like, what? How did you select Virginia? And especially, like, Virginia, of course, is the most beautiful state in the country, of course, but where you moved is up there in the northwest corner of Virginia, which is exceptionally beautiful. So how did that happen?
So my wife, Angela, we lived with her mother. Her mother, never spoke English, Italian only. And so she took care of her because she got sick.
Yeah.
When she passed, she said, and this was 3-4 years ago, she said, hey, let's get out of New York. And do you want to move to Northern Virginia? I was like, hell no, and never say those two words again. Because I was in Quantico, stationed in Quantico twice, Pentagon once, and I drove up and down I-95, and it's hell.
It's hell.
And she says, well, oh, okay. And so we came to my our niece wedding in Bluemont, Virginia, so Loudoun County. Yeah. Her brother moved down to Sterling, which was then all farmland in Loudoun County.
Not anymore.
I know. To worked at Dulles Airport for some 35 years now.
Wow.
And so we came down here, and I was like, yeah, I could live here. This is beautiful.
That's right. Yeah.
And so at that time, I was still, because I'm recently retired, at that time I was still working, so I wanted to be near the train. So the MARC train ran in Maryland from Harper's Ferry.
Just over the river, right.
All the way down. So I said, I want to live off of Route 7 because I want to get away from development. And Route 7 through Leesburg, now to Percival to Round Hill, is all it's just growing like, anywhere else. Lovettsville is probably 20 miles north on the border, kind of I think we're like 9 miles from West Virginia or Harper's Ferry,
Right.
and 2 miles from the bridge that crosses into Maryland where I caught the train. So that kind of is what led us to this beautiful farm, if you will.
I love it.
I know, now we have like chickens and cats and dogs. And we have horses. Horses, we don't have horses. There's horses surrounding us. And people say that's the best way to have horses. Look at them and you don't have to pay for them.
I think I remember you posting a short video about leaving your driveway, but you were interrupted by the hunt.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the dogs came, like 40 dogs came flying across the road. I'm like, what the heck? And then the red tuxedos, and I thought I was in some British movie, but it was a fox hunt. It was really cool.
It's a real deal.
So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Okay, so now though, so you have this background. You're an extraordinary writer. You seem to have abandoned that, much to my heartbreak. But everything you do sort of turns, you kind of have this Midas touch. So I've watched you started this organization where you're doing land management, like small scale land management for ordinary people who have a little piece of land. Many Virginians own between half an acre and 3 acres. Probably most Virginians do.
Yeah.
And yet it's more than the average homeowner can manage. So they wind up with land they own, but they can't use very well.
Right.
And yet there's not that many people to call to help with that. I mean, you can call So take it away.
So, I mean, you said it perfectly, because one of my mottos or sayings is I give you back the land you already own. Because you said it. What I saw on my land was the grass around the house and then a wall of vines, and you couldn't even walk into all this land you owned.
Right.
And I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. And so I open up people's land. I say I groom their land, and I purposely want to stay small. But what got me into this, backing up, which I think you were kind of going at, is the snow industry went so far downhill because everybody and their brother bought a plow and threw it on some rusted out truck, and I can't say everybody, didn't have insurance. And suddenly when it snowed in New York, it was like these ants came out and just people everywhere, and it undercut everything, and it just blew the industry.
Yeah.
So what I did down here is I was like, what can I do? And I saw this problem that I had. I'm pointing back there because I've opened up my acreage out here. And I said, what can I do that's actually very expensive to get into, that not everybody can just jump into and kill the market?
Right.
And so, I mean, that's kind of what led me towards forestry mulching, which is what it's called. And so I ended up buying heavy equipment and buying these forestry mulchers, and thought I was going to get into something large scale. And it ended up being where I started getting hired by homeowners in Loudoun County. And then I got licensed to work in West Virginia. I got licensed to work in Maryland because I'm right here in the corner.
Right.
And it just started, exploding on me, and I had to hire people, and it was very much a learn as you go.
Sure.
And it was so funny because yesterday we finished a job. We got back at like noon and just worked on equipment all day and did maintenance, very, very military-esque, doing your PMs, your preventive maintenance. And I've since built a large shop, and we had a great time in there, and turned on the music and tore apart stuff. And so I'm still kind of not rebuilding, but building I call it the barn. It's really, I guess, a shop. But so yeah, that's how I got into it. And it just, people started telling people who started telling people. And I have, the name of the company is Veterans LLC. And then I kind of started calling it Veterans LLC Land Rescue to kind of,
Yeah.
instead of land clearing, people think, oh, you're going to destroy the land. You're going to wipe it clean. I tell people, no, I'm going to groom it so you can enjoy your land and better stuff can grow. You're going to have air, water. I mean, it's just going to, and people are just blown away by the before and after pictures. And you can, on Facebook and Instagram, if you search at Veterans LLC, you can see the before and afters, and it's really cool.
Well, so one correction is that I studied a summer with Regent University at Oxford, but I actually am accepted to and attending, about to finish a Master of Science at London School of Economics. But all of that has brought me there many times in the last several years, my beautiful country. But one thing about the Brits I notice is different from Americans is it's very important to them that every square inch of the land that they have, they take good care of it. So whether that's just basic gardening or it's really manipulated for the well-being of the wildlife, but they take it very seriously. So that's why it caught my attention, what you're doing. And I had noticed that when you do, it's very innovative. I guess it's like you say, there's a big difference between coming in and clear cutting and coming in and making it just so you can use it. You're not destroying the wildlife habitat. You're not doing anything to make land around it suffer in any way by cutting off or adding to the water flow, and also not interrupting the shade canopy. So I'm looking carefully and I'm seeing that you have these paths that you cut and you leave the healthy and hardwood trees. I remember seeing a certification that you posted about responsible
Land disturber.
Talk about that for a second.
So I wanted to make sure I was doing everything correctly, and I like I said, I learned as I go. I was learning as I was going, and I saw that I could get if I took a test, I could become what Virginia calls a responsible land disturber, which I think kind of sounds funny, but anyways,
Sorry.
So there's certain rules of what you can do, and I wanted to make sure I was on the right side of that line, not just because I wanted to be not liable, but I wanted to know why those rules were there. And like, even doing that, you learn more about the why, which extends your knowledge further, and it even opens up more doors. So yeah, I had to take the test and I got the credential, and it adds to your value, if you will. And one thing, going back to what you were saying about not clear cutting, is I tell people I almost consider myself an artist, because I go out there and I have this blank canvas and it's just a wall of craziness. It's a very crowded canvas. When I go and visit a client, I tell them, I'm like, I'm kind of an artist. I'm not going to clear cut. There's not going to be straight lines. I want to create pathways that when you walk out there, you're going to enjoy yourself. And it's interesting, because as a Marine, you spend most of your time living outside, and kind of going way back, that's what I like to do. I like to walk in the woods. I like to be outside, and this all kind of came together. And a lot of times I'll just be out there and turn off the equipment and just sit there. And if you're having lunch or a drink of water or whatever, you just sit there on the track and enjoy it. And I did that many, many times in the field artillery, where there's beauty wherever you are. You just have to recognize it, be it in the desert or in the mountains. And people said how much they hated 29 Palms. It was hot, but it was gorgeous in the evening and in the mornings, and there's beauty everywhere. So I wanted to provide these people an environmentally safe, environmentally responsible, and beautiful setting that they could enjoy. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, bring that back around to the Marine Corps, because I see the Marine Corps ethos and all these things that of course you're writing and I hope in your old age you'll return to your writing. That's a long time from now. But in this business, I think of Marines as sort of having an edge with respect to efficiency and frugality, and just focused on job at hand and not overcomplicating it, and making sure that the job gets done. So it seems to me that is another edge you have, is your approach to running this business. So am I on track with that?
Yeah, you are, because I tell people sometimes I take it overboard, and I'm walking around at the tail end of a job, and I'm literally picking up sticks. And I'm like, well, if I can see it, the owner can see it. And I want to be different. I want to go above and beyond. I want to groom your land, and I want to present it to you so then you can take it to the next step, plant new grass, plant new trees, and enjoy that. Also, it's like you're out there on your own. Nobody's coming to help you. That's very Marine-esque as well, because when you're out there on the front lines, I mean, you are the 911. You are the rescue. So when I'm out there and you like throw a track, which I guess tankers would relate to, you have to figure out how to get that stinking track back on the machine. And many times, like when I was trying to fix a car or something, everybody wants to call somebody. Americans want to call somebody to get it done. Well, even if I had to call somebody, they're going to show up and do the same thing that I'm doing. Like, how do we do this?
Why don't you?
So now I'm paying somebody to also think about how to do it. So why don't I just do it? I'm
Right.
there. So yeah, that's definitely, and it's mission accomplishment. Mission comes first. You have to finish what you're doing. And I was on a huge job, and what was so interesting is this man served in Alpha Battery, 1st Battalion, 12th Marines from 87 to 90. And I was like, wait, I served in Bravo Battery, 1st Battalion, 12th Marines in 87 to 90. And we served in the same battalion and never knew each other, but it was crazy. I mean, and here he is, he moved from Arizona to here. But I remember being there and it's pouring rain, and like I had to hire extra people because it was so, the job was so big, and it started raining, and we're running a giant, what were we running? A giant chipper, and it's pouring rain, and I just kept working through the rain, and I was just drenched, and my main guy was drenched with me, and everybody else went and hid away from the rain. And wherever they're hiding, they got wet too. So why not be wet?
Working.
So, okay, yeah, go over there and don't get paid. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I love to trail hike, and Virginia has some extraordinary parks, state parks and national parks, and even city parks in some of the wealthier counties. And these trails require a tremendous amount of maintenance. This is no joke. And we have kudzu here, which in the summer can literally take over acres and acres and acres of land in a few weeks. And so I completely get that you can have a really big job, especially if you're starting from scratch, if you're talking about land that hasn't been. And then also, as a Virginian, forestry is the family business. And so I know that there's a tremendous amount of mix of land. So even on 1 acre, you could have hardwood, you can have softwood, you can have trashy stuff that needs to go, and you can have precious trees that you don't want to disturb, young baby trees. So it is when you describe it as that you're an artist or a sculptor or however you want to describe it, it really is. You have to take every square foot as it is, and you're going to encounter any kind of weather. So I really admire your approach to this, and I do think it's very unique and very innovative. So where are you going to go with this? What's on the horizon?
I'm actually trying to stay small. and I want to have control, not as in a control freak, but as in quality control. And I mean, everything comes down to the Marine Corps acronym BAMSIN, and the final, the S on the final, at the end of that acronym is supervise. So you have to supervise the plan, and you show up at a job and I am the one that comes up with the plan just by walking the ground. And again, it's just like coming up with a battle plan of some sort. You walk in and you begin the planning, you arrange for the recon, you make the recon, you complete the order, you issue the order, and you supervise. That's BAMSIS right there. And you can apply that to anything you do. And I mean, and I go in and I do it like that, and we get started, and you finish the job. And again, it's all tied back to my Marine Corps training, and every Marine out there will relate with this. People are like, "Oh, I couldn't do what you do," and it's so cool, or this, that. I don't know. To us, it's just what we do. I mean, it's not like anything we think of that's unique. I have to tell you a story. I was on a job 2 weeks ago, and we're going to town, and then suddenly a guy pulls up in a golf cart, an older gentleman, and he's sitting there watching. And actually, my son was down from New York. He was helping, and my main guy. And so they were actually using machetes, clearing, and that's another thing we do. We actually hand clear around trees and make it beautiful. And so I just kept going, and I'm like, oh geez, what's going on? The neighbor's not happy. Something's, and I'm going through my list of what could have gone wrong. And so I see now my son and my worker are talking with this gentleman. And so I turn off the machine, and he comes over. He goes, "Hey, how are you, Marine?" Because the Bobcat I'm using has VeteransLLC.us, Marine Corps stickers. I get, of course, we tattoo everything with to include heavy equipment. And so he was smiling. He goes, "This looks great." And I was like, okay, so the bad juju went away. And I said, he said, "I was in the Marine Corps for a long time." I said, "Oh yeah." And I worked for defense contracting after. I said, "Well, I kind of did the same thing." And I said, "Hey, I'm Dave Andersen. Nice to meet you." And he said, "Oh, I'm Earl Hailston." "Yeah, cool." And I said, "What was your last name?" And he said, "Hailston." And I said, "General Hailston?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's me." I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, he ran MAR4 PAC, MAR4 this, MAR4 that. And I mean, he was in the Marine Corps for 40 years, 3-star general. And I knew him. And here we are meeting out in the woods on some mountaintop in northwestern Virginia. It was really cool.
I love it. But it's not terribly surprising, because a lot of Marine bosses retire not far from the Pentagon, Quantico. And I wouldn't have been terribly surprised that this would happen. But I can imagine it was a wonderful breath of fresh air to see him though there.
It was very cool. It was really neat. And yes, I understand, but the circumstances, we're out in the middle of the woods. I'm like, the Marines are returning to where we belong, in the woods.
Yeah, that's a very illustrative, isn't it? It also means that you were doing the right thing, like you're at the right place, that you would have that kind of serendipitous moment, at least from my way of looking at it.
Exactly.
So you're going to stay in Virginia? Is that sort of the plan?
Yeah, that's the plan for now. I mean, we're building this wonderful homestead. I have a massive 40 by 24 garden. I mean, I'd like to pick it up and show it to you, but I don't know that.
Well, in the YouTube version of this podcast, that is the one wonderful thing about podcasts these days, is that they're available on all the podcast channels, but they can be converted to video when there's great art. And of course, with you, great art is going to follow. So that was really important to me, to be able to include a video version of this, to have, if nothing else, all your history as a Marine from what brings great value to me, which is Marine Corps news writing, and also this Virginia move. but I wanted to include your work in the woods, and I'm going to try to get some video of you guys with the machete, certainly, but any other art. So listeners, going over to YouTube and you'll find this there. There'll be a link in the description, but absolutely we want pictures of that garden. What do you got growing this summer?
Oh, geez. If I walk in, there's beets, arugula, lettuce. I'm trying to visually walk through there.
Go ahead.
Numerous different kinds of zucchini, summer squash, next row. Then we have many different varieties of tomatoes, I think in the next row. Peppers, and we have peppers. We have potatoes, and we have sweet potatoes, peas, cucumbers. And then lined the garden with zinnias and marigolds, and hung up pots on the flower pots of, I think, impatiens. And then I tried the bucket tomatoes, where you grow the tomatoes upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my first time trying that, and those are in each corner as well.
Now,
so
tell us a little bit about Angela. It seems to me that Angela is an extraordinary chef there. You got going.
Oh, she is. She's done some chef training, and she's just her mother taught her how to cook. They're from Sicily, and I mean, it's rough to stay in shape with her. And I mean, she's got us going back to the personal trainer, getting the old PT back in line. And she's a teacher, K through 2 autism teacher in Loudoun County. So right now we're fighting with the decision of, does she go back to school 4 weeks from now? And it seems, in the time we are right now with the COVID-19, it almost seems ridiculous that we're sending our kids back to school. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't understand that decision right now. I mean,
well, it's definitely a hot button topic, but for you, obviously it hits home because your wife would be there, as well as all the other professionals in teaching. It's a terrible season we're in. I love core stories to be our stories to be timeless, but there's no way I could have a podcast without this coming up. And it's very challenging. I mean, I completely value the reservations and concerns that your family has about her returning to the classroom. And like you say, 4 weeks, it's right upon us now.
Yeah, it's right there. And it's really interesting to hear the parental view of, these kids need to go back to school. They need to socialize. There's not going to be socialization 6 feet apart, wearing masks. I mean, the classroom's cut down, but it's like, oh, the kids, they're not as susceptible to get the virus. But it's like, what about the teachers? Nobody's thinking about the teachers.
That is the concern. That really, and all the other staff who work there. There's so many.
Yeah. I don't know. It's.
But that's noble. It's noble work she's doing.
No, it's a tough job. But hold on, I have a dog looking at me. I don't know if he'll come on. Yes, hello.
Oh, come on, let's see Walter. Love him so much. Hi, darling. And he's actually very young, isn't he?
He's he goes, doing what great Pyrenees do. I think he thinks he saves us about 143 times a day.
Of course, that's his job. Come on now. But this is your second one, right? Because I remember.
I'm sorry?
This is your second Great Pyrenees.
No, this is actually our first one. We've had numerous Newfoundlands, and unfortunately we lost Mason probably about 2 months ago, which was rough. Anyways,
but I love these massive dogs that you have, and that they have such a wonderful place to live there.
Oh God, it's, I mean, he roams the property, and he keeps the chickens safe. We, knock on wood, we haven't had any predators come in, although neighbors have predators. So
it's because of Walter.
Yeah, I have to credit him.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you again. So if anybody is in that corner of Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, and you need some land management, you can reach out to Dave this way, and I'll have links to his organization in the description. But I can't tell you what an honor it is to be back in conversation with you live. And yeah, it's been fun. So thank you so much, Dave. Great to see you again.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you. And we'll see you again soon. I hope.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So Meriwether asked that we go for a walk in the garden. I call the garden Winterfell. Nobody's getting in there. And if you say deer can jump this, there's a laser beam around the top. If that beam is broken, automatic machine gun fire comes from the roof of the house and eliminates the deer. At the same time, a protective beam goes over the plants and saves them from firepower. A friend of mine said that is definitely gardening through superior firepower. So we built this, added some rock here, planted flowers all around the edge to try to keep bugs out. We've already been eating the lettuce, the arugula. The beets are coming in. We've had a few, but they need to get bigger. Doing hanging upside down tomatoes. Actually, they're going okay, except the bottom. This is the first time for me doing these. The bottom gets a little rotten. Coming up this way, we have some gourds coming in for Halloween. A volunteer tomato plant. Having a tough time with the zucchini and squash and butternut. The squash bugs got in there. And something I'm new to, so I went on a 7 dust attack yesterday, as you can see. So we'll see how that goes. We have the peppers, eggplants, already have some of those going good. 2 not so good, but are producing. Had trouble with the peas this year, so only got a few, and the cucumbers having a little trouble. Zinnias doing fantastic. So we have all kinds of varieties of tomatoes coming in. As you can see, pruning them. Put this up yesterday because it was getting crazy. And as you know, that's tanglefoot for any marine out there. We have some carrots. This is one zucchini plant or squash. Anyways, it's one. It started right there. And apparently our neighbor said you can trace the genealogy of these seeds back to like the colonial days. So we were fortunate to get those. And then we have sweet potato row all up there. Potato bucket, under the zucchini or potatoes right there. Yeah, that's about it. More hanging a volunteer tomato plant just kind of came out of nowhere. And yeah, so we're doing good. We're eating well. And we're gonna replant this for the winter. What's really amazing is this rock tomato came out in a bad spot because this is a gate, but they're indigenous to Virginia. They just come out of the gravel, and they're really amazing. Or it's just one that fell off and I stepped on it. That's probably that's probably it. That's not a rock tomato. Actually, I don't think they exist.
So I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to that podcast. I know I had a lot of fun, and certainly very surprised to learn about the rock tomato of Virginia. Anyway, hit subscribe and join us for another episode. Have a great day in Semper Fidelis.
Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.